Hi, it's Nicola Bird here from the Floral Project, and I am here today with June's flower kit sewing guide. And this month I'm actually going to do June and July together, and I'll tell you for why. And that is because we are going to start sowing our biennials. So this is a really exciting time for me because here at the Floral Project I can see you all posting pictures and tagging me with pictures of your beautiful blooms that are all just coming into flower, and you have more flowers than you know what to do with, and that's kind of going to distract you over the summer. But now is the perfect time to be sowing your seeds that are going to bloom the very first flowers you're going to have early next summer. So at the moment, as I look out into the garden, I can see the Foxgloves, the Honesty, the Sweet William, the Wallflowers are just about over now, the Sweet Rocket everywhere, and it's what's given me flowers a whole probably 6 weeks earlier than I had last year, and now is the time when we start sowing them. And so I love it that you're all distracted by the flowers that you've got, and hopefully you'll be giving armfuls of them away this summer. But now is when we can start thinking about next year. And so that's why it's really exciting to me as well that you're here today watching this video, because hopefully you have your seeds in your hand, and or you're just about to get them through the post, so you're watching this video in advance. But to me it's exciting because it means those of you that are here today watching this because you've got the June flower kit, it shows me that you're committed to doing this long term, right? That you're in this at least for the next year, because if you sow these babies, they're going to be up next summer. And so I love the idea that this isn't just a flash in the pan for you, that you love this whole process of us sowing and growing and doing this together every single month. Like, I just that makes me really happy to know that you're here doing that with me. And yeah, this is where we kick off next year. So June and July we're going to be sowing mainly biennials, and then come August, September, October we'll move into our hardy annuals that we'll be sowing in the autumn, which is how you'll end up getting those massive great big flowers that you can see in my cut flower patch on my Instagram and on my website at the moment, that I've been sharing everywhere. People are like, how do you get your flowers so tall? And it's just simply because of sowing them at the right time of the year. But don't worry, you're in the flower club. Just keep going with me, basically, and you'll have the same as I have in my garden this year. So on to this month's seeds. So what you'll see is, so I'm going to do June and July together because we've got 2 in the June kit that are for this summer, right? So I'm going to talk about those first. And then all the rest of these are our biennials. So you'll get 3 in June, 5 in July, and you'll have the complete set. So that's what we want, right? We want you to have the whole set. So I'm going to do all of those in this one video, which means that you can sow the seeds that you get in June, and then as soon as your July kit comes along, you know, you've got the video, you've watched the video, you'll be right out of the gate. But it means you don't have to sow them all at once. You'll be sowing some in June, some in July, but just a few weeks apart from each other. So the aim with these is that we sow them now, and then what we'll do is we'll again do them like we normally do them. So we'll sow them on the kitchen windowsill or in the greenhouse, in little modules or in seed trays. Then we will grow them on in the greenhouse, and a lot of the time outside in a kind of sheltered spot, actually, because quite often the greenhouse is just too hot through the summer, especially if you're going away. You don't want those things to frazzle like you can kill them all very quickly if you're not careful, because they get too hot. So you need to look after them, and these will take off so quickly, these seedlings, like you've never seen before. Like, they really will get going quickly. Our job is to keep them alive through the heat of the summer, and then in September, October time, what we'll do is plant them out into the garden, so you don't have to worry about having somewhere to overwinter them. We'll plant them out into the garden, and they'll sit there all through the winter. And then they'll put on foliage, but no flowers this year. But they will be flowering like crazy next year. So yeah, that's the kind of cycle of them. They're a bit of a longer cycle biennials, but so worth doing because they fill that gap in the flowering season between, will be, you know, if you're growing anemones and ranunculus and things like that, they flower early, and then you kind of have a gap before the rest of the flowers come in, and that's where the biennials flower, and that means you can start giving away bunches earlier, and who doesn't want that? So just to start with, so we've got the first, we've got these 2 if you've got the June kit in front of you. If you've got the July kit and only the July kit, ignore this bit of the video. But I'll put some links below so you can just skip to the seeds that you're interested in. But this is the nasturtium and the zinnia. So the zinnia we are going to sow exactly the same as we did last month. So I'm going to do a clever insert of the video that I did last month. So you can just do these exactly the same way. And the nasturtium, I'm not going to show you doing those because I plant them just directly into the garden. I've got actually some in a big pot and some in the garden, but they're very simple. You just follow the instructions on the back. So put them in the ground 2 centimeters deep, cover them over, water them, step back and wait, right? So make sure you put a label in the garden so you know where they are. But those two are very straightforward and those should give you flowers this summer, but don't delay with those ones, right? As soon as you get them, sow them so that you get flowers this summer. And don't worry that they're flowering in the latter part of the summer, because as most of you have probably realized, you've got like a glut of flowers already. So actually, as those start to get tired, these ones will take over, and that's why these are in this kit. Otherwise, what happens if I don't hold some of them back till now, you sow them all really early, they're all over really early, and you're kind of left with a bit of a gap. So I want to make sure you've got flowers all through the summer. So these will kind of fill a gap later in the summer for you. They'll go alongside your dahlias and all that kind of thing. What I have then done, let me just pop those down. So what I have then done with the rest of the seeds is I've just gone through them myself, and I've just put a little S on the back of the ones that need to be surface sown. So these need light to germinate, and it says it on the back of the packets, but I'll tell you which ones. So I separate them into needs light to germinate, so they need surface sowing if you like. So I put those aside, and then the rest of them don't. So I kind of have 3 piles this month. I've got my annuals, my hardy annuals that I'm sowing right away, the zinnia and nasturtium. I've got the ones I sow on the surface of the soil, and then I've got the ones that need covering over separately. So I just remember to organise those a bit differently when I'm sowing out in the greenhouse. So all that said, let's get started. So for those of you that are new and this is your first month growing along with the Floral Project, I'm going to take you step by step through absolutely everything that I do. If you have been sowing and growing with us for ages and you know this bit, I'll put a link below so you can just click to me talking about the particular seeds that you want to be finding out more information about. So you can just head over to the link that interests you. But otherwise, if you're new, I just want to show you everything that I do, because sometimes this whole sowing seed things can be a real mystery if you don't know what you're doing and how to do it. So there are a few things that you need. You need your seeds, you need some compost. Now you can't sit here on the floor, but I use something called Silver Grow, and it's peat-free compost. So always use peat-free compost if you can, while you can. And so you need some of that compost. And all I've done with that is I've just rubbed it in my hands to get rid of all the big lumps. You can get fancy and use a sieve. I'm a grower that shows you I'm the lazy girl grower. Like I'll just show you the simplest way to get started. So compost, you can get fancy and add things to your compost, but I'm literally going to show you the bare basics of what you need to get a good start with your seeds. This is enough, right? So compost, rub it in your hands like this. Seed trays, so this is a 40 module seed tray, and sometimes I use these, sometimes I just use a small flower pot or a seed tray or an old yogurt pot. It doesn't matter, it just needs to be something that's got holes in the bottom, right, for drainage, so that the water can go through, so your seeds don't all rot. You need your seeds, and then you need some labels. Like, newbie mistake is always not labeling your seeds, and you'll see in our Facebook group we get so many people going, what's this? As it starts growing and you've got no idea what it is. So I'm just going to do my labels now before I get started, right? So I've got my piles, I've got my ones that need doing on the surface, my ones that need covering over. And now I am just going to get on and do my labels. So now I have all my labels done. All I'm going to do is put the compost into the seed tray here. So I'm going to fill it right up to the top, and what I'm going to do, I don't know, there's something about that, it's so satisfying. You want to make sure that it's really filled up well, so there's no air pockets or anything in your seed cells. Because what you don't want to happen is as the seeds start to develop roots, that they hit an air pocket inside of the cells, because the root will have nothing to grab onto and your plant won't thrive. So here, I'm just smooth over all the top here and just give it a little tap like that. Just make sure that the soil is all, compost is all settled in, and you can see if you've got any obvious big lumps, bumps or gaps. That's where it'll become really apparent when that happens. In my seed tray, you can see it's an 8x5 seed tray. So that just works out really nicely for me in terms of what I'm sowing. So I've got the seeds here. I've got 5 sets of seeds here. Now you might only have 3 the first time you're sowing if you're just doing the June seeds. But these are all the ones that need covering over. It doesn't really matter. You can sow any of the biennials next to the biennials. If you've got the June kit and you've got your half-hardy annuals, you might want to sow those separately. But I'm going to use 2 trays like this, and I'm just going to divide my seeds up over those trays. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to sow like all Sweet Rocket here, all Honesty here, Californian poppies, Wallflowers. So I'm going to have 8 seedlings of each growing. Each time I sow, I try and sow less, because I actually only want like 4 of each plant in the end. But this is a good way to make sure if there's any non-germination, if any keel over and die in the heat, if my neighbours need some. I always sow at least double what it is that I actually want as plants at the end of the month. You know, not at the end of the month, but at the end of this growing season, right? So I always grow too many and I try and cut back each time, but that's my way of doing it this time. You can sow as many as you like. Now I'm actually going to go through and I'll show you with each of them. So I'm just going to start with Sweet Rocket here. Now these ones need to go under cover. Now some of them you'll read the packet, and if you get really you know, very specific about it, there are some that need to be under 1 millimeter of soil and some that need to be under 3 millimeters of soil. But to my mind it just means cover them very gently. So what I'm going to do is I will take each of the seeds. So this is my, you know, make sure that your hands are pretty clear, otherwise you won't know what's seed and what isn't. And then, so this is my Sweet Rocket. So if you look, these are quite easy to handle, these seeds this size. Some of them are tiny, but these ones are quite easy to handle. So all I'm going to do is hook one up under my little fingernail here, and I'm just placing, I don't know if you can see this because the camera's not in so close, but all I'm doing is placing one seed in the middle of each cell. That's my Sweet Rocket. And then with your extras, with your spare seeds, make sure that you carefully put them back into the packet, because you might want to, if any of these don't germinate, if I don't see germination in the next sort of 2 or 3 weeks in one of these cells, I can pop another seed in and no problem, right? I can make sure that I get my 8 baby seedlings if I feel I need them. I'm going to pop that away, and I'm going to store these somewhere cool and dark, and I can keep them until next year. The germination won't be as good next year as if I was if I was sowing them now, but it'll only be slightly less. Should be if I'm really careful and keep them somewhere cool and dark. So I'm just going to do the same with all of the remaining ones of these seeds. So that's my Sweet Rocket, my Wallflowers, my Californian Poppies, and my Honesty. I'm just going to do that now and put those into the tray. So now these are all sown, what I'm going to do is take a very, you know, fine compost. You know, I've made sure there's no lumps and bumps in it. And I'm just going to really, oh, like that. And I'm just going to gently, very gently cover over these seeds. Just like this. To make sure they're all covered. And then really what you want to do, but do this very carefully so you hopefully you don't end up lifting any of the seeds in your hands, but as best you can, just to kind of press the soil down to make sure, that way you know that the seed has got good contact with the soil, right, for the best possible chance of germination. So hopefully I haven't moved seeds to seeds, you know, seeds from cell to cell, because hopefully they were all covered over. Now I've got this like this, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fill this with water from the underneath, right? So this tray here has got no holes in it, and that's because I'm going to put this on my kitchen windowsill, so I don't want it to have holes in it. So this is like a gravel tray, a seed tray without holes. And this sits nicely in here. So what I'm going to do is I'll put about 1 inch of water in the bottom of there when I take this into the kitchen in a moment, and I will sit those in there, and it can be sort of half an hour. If the compost is really dry, honestly sometimes it can take 45 minutes, but what you'll see is that you can see the surface of the soil looking damp, and that's when you know that there's water, that the compost seed and water are kind of have met each other, if you like, so it'll soak up the water from underneath. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I don't really want to water them from above, because if I do, chances are I'll knock some of those tiny seeds, especially the poppies, off to the side of the tray, and so they'll grow like over on the side of the modules, or maybe even washed out right out of the tray. So I want to leave them where they are. I'll water from underneath, give them a big water that way, and then when I can see that the top of the soil is looking damp, so you do need to keep an eye on it, because you don't want this soil to be soaked. You always want your soil to be moist but not damp, right? Because otherwise the seeds will just rot. Then I'll lift this out and I'll just tip all of the extra water away, and I'll just leave that like this. I won't put a lid or anything on it because it's perfectly hot and warm at the moment in my kitchen windowsill, and I will leave this on the tray in the kitchen, and as and when I can see the soil drying out, I will water again from underneath. Once I can see I've got seedlings growing, then I might decide to water on the top, but I will pretty much water underneath, and I'll do that every few days because it is hot at the moment, and I want to give these the best chance of germination. So those are the ones that you cover, and I'm going to do the same again. I'm just going to prepare a tray for the ones that we're going to put onto the surface of the soil, so I'll show you that too. So we're all ready to sow these ones that go on the surface, and what you'll notice about seeds, often what happens with seeds that grow, that you sow onto the surface that need light for germination, is that because the seeds are absolutely tiny, and you'll really notice that with the Foxgloves and the Canterbury bells. So with the Sweet Williams, you're just going to place one in each module tray as we did before. But with the Foxgloves, you might decide to sow these in a seed tray and then prick them out later when you've got your little seedlings. You will end up with thousands of Foxgloves, I can guarantee you. But that's okay. Like I've still got my module tray just because I'm chosen to do it this way. That's what I've got handy. But what I'm going to do is what you'll see. Let me pour them out so you can take a look. You can try and get one of these per cell if you're really light fingered, but to be honest, life's too short. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sprinkle a tiny amount, as much as lightly as I can. I mean, ideally I want no more than, I'm doing more than this, but like no more than 4 seeds in each of these tiny little modules. And that's because for me, there's an area of the garden where I just want to grow like a foxglove forest. I've fallen in love with them this year as I sowed them last year. And so I don't mind if I have like 30 of these. But last year, this is one of the things I gave away the most because I had so many seedlings. Now, as these grow, these are going to grow into little seedlings, and quite quickly we're going to want to prick them out. And I'll do that with you so you know how to do it, so don't worry. You can, if you're going to use a seed tray, just sprinkle as lightly as you can like this across the surface of the soil. Try and leave as many spaces as you can between the actual seeds themselves, but we'll prick them out and give them separate pots once they're a little bit bigger. So I'm going to do the same with the Canterbury bells, and then I'm just going to place one seed of each of the Sweet William into the tray. So I'm going to do the same thing with these now that I just said with the other seed tray. So fill them up, water them from below, wait for them to get moist, and then what we need to do is, as soon as any of your seeds germinate, so any of the ones in this tray or any ones in that tray, as soon as any of the ones in this tray germinate, I'm going to bring them outside, and depending on how hot it is, they'll either go in the greenhouse. I did all mine in the greenhouse last year, or in a slightly shady spot in the garden, so they're getting light but not blasted by the heat, as they'll be tender little seedlings. But you don't want to keep them on your kitchen windowsill, because you will get leggy plants if you do. There's not enough light inside a kitchen or a conservatory for these things to grow, so they need to be outside in the light so that they can really get the best start in life. But if you get, for example, some foxgloves come up, I can't remember which ones come up first, but say you had foxgloves come up and the Sweet Williams haven't yet, doesn't matter, get the tray outside. I can't say it enough, people keep it on the kitchen windowsill for far too long, and they are salvageable, but it's better if you can get them outside so they've got the best start in life, because then you'll get the most healthiest flowers from them. So one thing that I do want to say, I should have said really at the beginning, is that you can do this process any time over June and July. We just happen to be doing it this way. We're doing some in June, some in July, just so you don't get overwhelmed with like hundreds of seeds everywhere, so that you can break it down a little bit into bite-sized chunks. But you can save all of these seeds and do them all in the middle of July if you like, if you're going away, or that's just more convenient for you. Get them done by the end of July though, because what we really want, I mean, you can sow them later, and all that will happen is just that you might not get a chance. They might not be big enough to go into the ground before winter, but we really want them in the ground before winter, because that way you can just leave them. So you'll have to throw a fleece over them maybe when it gets really cold, but aside from that you can just leave them. If they're in the greenhouse, you're going to have to keep watering them all the way through winter, and who needs the extra work? And your greenhouses are also going to be full of hardy annuals over the winter. So these are one job that you want to get done in the summer, so they're in the ground and out. But you don't have to do it on like the 1st of June. In fact, I've kind of declared the 19th and 20th of June as our biennial seed sowing together weekend. I've sowed these ones a little bit earlier because I wanted you to have the video so you know what to expect, and I also want to be a few days ahead of you, so that I can show you the progress and create films and videos for you as these babies grow up, so you know what to do with them next. So I've just sowed mine a little bit earlier than I would recommend that you do, but if you wait till the 19th and 20th of June at the earliest, but you can do it all the way through to the end of July, and these will be your flowers for next year. So I will add some little videos in here so you can have a reminder of what you're sowing and growing and why you're giving them. And I look forward to seeing all your pictures. Post them in the Facebook group. Let me know, ta-da, here are mine, I've done them. So I can keep an eye on you and make sure that that I'm answering any questions you might have as you start and you keep going. So looking forward to seeing all your posts in the Facebook group. Yeah, I'll be back with another video for you shortly. Take care.